Well, this cycle, I'm sure everybody in this room is following along, but I think I don't love the model we have in Michigan where the entire Senate is elected all at once. It's not staggered terms, and it is every 4 years during the off cycle for the presidential, and that coincides with when the gubernatorial, Secretary of State, and Attorney General races all happen at once. So that's all happening this year. I actually have not filed anything yet and not made any formal announcement. So, but I'm still a candidate for my current seat until otherwise, anything changes. Well, the way we look at those things is that I got in this. One thing Allison didn't tell you is that once we decided that we were going to run for something, we talked to what people we could who had more. I was fortunate. Her dad had worked with a lot of people that had done good things in politics. And a lot of people said, well, you've got to run for Congress. That's the place. It was actually our internal decision that we thought and believed that there was more opportunity to try to make an impact in the state legislature. Mm-hmm. We didn't know we were going to lose the whole thing to the Democrats that year. But all that to say is, I don't know where the future takes us. I try to keep it focused on what I said during some of my remarks, is that I'm going to look for the best place to make as much impact as I can. Right now, that's in the state Senate. Mm-hmm. I did look very seriously this last cycle at potentially running for United States Senate because Gary Peters had announced his retirement. That's a very tall mountain to climb that involves a lot to do it, and did not end up going that direction. But we'll see what the future holds. For now, it's keep trucking along and do what we can.
And my job is just to clear the path for him, whatever he needs.
Oh, maybe that question was for you.
Yeah.
See, what do you think? Right? This one could do that.
We just stay prepared for anything. And when it happens, when he decides or when it makes clear, it makes clear. No, I still have a 2-year-old, 2, 8, and 9.
Yeah. I believe right now today, we are in an infinitely better place than we were, for instance, when I was growing up, and you only had 3 news channels to go to, and they were all pre-scripted, and they still are, right? So, like, if you're watching Fox News now, like, I don't know what to say, but it's one good place to go hear what one narrative formation is. But we are, I think, incredibly blessed. We're not totally to the promised land on the diffusion of information, but it is very difficult for them to hide the truth today compared to what it was when I was growing up. They do not have complete narrative control. As far as getting then into specific topics, like how do you get candidate information, I think even in that regard, I mean, if you had tried even before, broad internet searches I think of when I was a kid, right? Like the only source people had was kind of big media and then like word of mouth, right? Like, what do you know about them? And it was take it or leave it. Now I actually think I encourage people, it's mostly about the willingness of the individual to actually spend the time to dig in, because if you actually want to go in and do some deep research and find out what other people have uncovered, a lot of people will put this stuff in places that are not, they'll do podcasts about it, they'll dive in, they'll show you receipts on campaign finance stuff, they'll go through. So I would say in one way we're a lot better if people are willing to take the time and dig in, but the double-edged sword there is that also means there's a plethora of information that isn't true, right? So it's difficult to wade through and say what is actually true. The last thing I'll say on this, sorry, it's too long of an answer for a simple question, but there is no substitute whenever it is possible, I believe, to actually trying to meet people in person and take their measure. Anybody can hide behind like built narratives and whatever. I think it is a lot harder if you can get people in person and get a sense of them, but it also takes a lot of discernment, because even as I say that, I'll say there are a lot of people that I wonder sometimes, they'll come out and talk to a room and do a political sort of presentation. And I think we collectively, I don't just mean this room, but in general, the public does need to be more discerning and not take things at face value, right? It's easy to stand up and say whatever, right? And then what does the record actually show on that topic? But did you have anything to add?
Well, do you have anyone you watch or listen to that you would suggest to this group?
I mean, I actually have really appreciated, as far as social media goes, X as a platform after Elon bought it. Nothing's perfect, but it's been the best one in terms of actually allowing people to say different opinions that are not, all pre-scripted. Facebook is still largely run by people that will do a lot of throttling of stories that they don't want to be told. But I think there are, even within Michigan, there's no like one source. I mean, I'm a bit, my only rule on that is I'm a big multi-source and look for consistencies or inconsistencies, and then wonder why does that person have that story and that one have that one? Because you've got to, it's not operational anymore. Garrett Soldano was doing this thing where he'd interview people from a grassroots perspective. Sometimes you get good insights there. What's that guy's name? James David Dixon does his own podcast. Sometimes he'll bring people on and have good. Rescue Michigan, sometimes we'll have people on. Even Kevin Rinke started the show where he'll bring candidates on. And it's funny because it's a very production type thing, but some of his interviews have been more to the point on certain topics with people than some of the other ones you're going to get from the media. And then you can still watch when these people go on the news or whatever. But it's also about, digging into, some of the, the other thing about this that is really important is it's not just about educating yourself about the candidate. One of the hardest things, if you want to be educated about whether somebody's doing a good job or not, and this is a heavy lift, right? I'm going to throw something at you, is that this is where collectively we've all got to do better on understanding civics in general, right? Let me give you an example. Like, you can't judge people if you don't know what the job actually involves, right? So here's the best example I've seen in my time in the Senate. Our Senate in Michigan, because of a constitutional rule, and we've kept it in our own Senate rules for a long time, effectively when the chamber is full, if we want to pass a budget, effectively we need 26 votes to do it. Even though the majority, there's only 38 people in the chamber, there's 20 Democrats, 18 Republicans when we started. Now we're missing one, but so to get a majority to pass something, you only need the 20 Democrats to vote together, right? But for a budget to be granted immediate effect under the Constitution, you need a two-thirds vote. So you actually need 6 Republicans to join the Democrats. However, in Michigan Senate, you can do that in a 2-step process where you pass the budget under a simple party line vote with a majority, and all the Republicans can say they voted no, and that is recorded in a journal that anybody can go look it up and find the roll call vote and every name and who voted for it. To grant immediate effect, which the budget cannot happen without it, a second vote will be held that is a secret vote that is not recorded in the journal. And 6 Republicans who voted no on the budget will go vote yes on immediate effect for it. If the people don't this is just an example, right? But if the people don't take the time to dig in, and it's hard, right? Like, these are nuanced, what did I just describe to you is not a thing that people talk about. But if people don't understand that, then how could they get to the point where if they saw a representative, they would say, well, how do you vote on immediate effect votes? Do you vote the same way on immediate effect votes that you do on your public, votes? I personally find that important. Some people that I serve with, if they got that question, would be comfortable saying to people, I view the immediate effect as a procedural vote, so I'm comfortable voting a different way than I do on passage of the bill. Well, then the voter can have a dialogue, whether they think that makes sense or not, right? But all that to say is you can't even get to the point where you can find the media outlets, you can find the interviews, you can find research things, but a lot of that rests on, for each person, their ability to put it through, their own understanding of how government works, right? And what are the pitfalls? John?
I'm going to just offer a question. I'm going to make a statement, and I'd like you to respond to that. And that is, media is what we've always gone to, and we've become lazy as a society where we go to school to have people tell us what we should think, and we go to church to have people tell us what we should believe, and we listen to the news to have people tell us what we should feel. And it's groups like this that we should be involved in, because it's groups like this that should take that specific issue, which is civics and the politicians and the people that are supposed to serve you, get to know who they are and disseminate that information in these groups. The problem is we found even in these groups, they become groupthink instead of individual think, where we bring these things in, or people, there'll be one or two people that'll do a bunch of stuff and nobody else will come in. And even in the collective group, when we find out things that we know, we still have a problem going outside of that group to the neighbors and the people and our friends and our families that we do know, and taking that information that we learned, that we know can be true, and take it out where it needs to go. Do you see that as that these groups should or shouldn't operate that way?
I think generally yes, right? I mean, I think we need a resurgence of more people, meeting and working together. I won't go down the path of saying, that. I mean, we have built-in political groups on a lot of different ways, right? That people could plug into. Some of them have been more healthy over the years, others have not. But certainly, yeah, I mean, there's more opportunity for that. And I would say, I mean, I have strongest alignment with, I think, the last thing you said, that even if you do build up a good movement, or, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, some of the best political movements through history, they weren't formal, it's like you get together and you build a group, core group, maybe. But the key is also, I think what you touched on in the end is it can't be an insulated, we do this because it's our friends and whatever. It's got to be about how does that reach out and impact the community around it, or help, connect more people and grow. And I don't know what.
Just like an additional layer, and it's unrealistic to think everybody has time to do all these different things, right? You want to digest one news source, but I really think it's important and prefer and do a lot in the background listening to the alternative side source. I want to know what the counterpoints are to what I'm in favor of at the moment. I want to be able in my head to build a case against that, to make sure that I feel that way, to check myself. And also gather in pieces of information that may not be circulated in my genre's media, right? I need to be taking counterpoints in and other items to continue to strengthen what I believe in and my knowledge base on the topic. I can't just be, fed also from my side.
That's why you're always listening to NPR.
I do. I listen to NPR. They have a local Michigan base. I get to know what he's doing through a lot of the day. There are different votes. I get a different opinion. I get more information on Michigan-based bills, and I get to think, oh, of course they're saying that this way, but we can't. Our world is not one.
Yeah. So if you want to give a mama bear side of the script, but I mean, look, the number one, if we're talking K through 12 or even preschool, whatever's going on there, I would be very cautious about assigning very much blame to anybody other than people right here in the United States of America. System's broken front to back. Government schools, as a model, have largely failed. In Michigan, they're even worse than most places. But at the end of the day, the answer to that has always been very crystal clear and obvious, and it's providing people with school choice so that they can actually go and put their kids into places that will give them the good education that they deserve. I have been a leader on that. I've led the legislation on it for 2 sessions in a row. It won't come up for a vote under Democrats. But I don't think on those things, what they're doing in K through 12 is as much about the foreign influence. The foreign influence, a lot of the money has been at the college level. I'm not saying there's none as you go downstream, but it was a huge part of what I talked about during my campaign, because I went to the person that I ended up running against. So like I said, I didn't go pick her as I'm going to run against this person. The maps were drawn that way. I actually considered stepping back once I found out I was against an incumbent, because I said, I think a responsible way to approach it is go look at what is their track record, what have they done. If they're serving the people well, there's no reason to just go pick a fight. One of the things I found is that she chaired the higher education budget, and I asked, why are we giving so much money to these universities that are doing a whole variety of terrible things, including working directly with foreign governments on all these grant programs that are direct infiltrations? And we've seen this since I've been there. The good news is there are people who have been woken up on this issue. I've played a role in that. I've run amendments on budget votes, etc. There is zero interest from the Democrats right now in seriously tackling this issue. I don't say this, like I have low tolerance for public or for elected officials who want to give excuses. That's not how I approach it, but I do shoot straight and say, they run the budget in my chamber right now. The best I do is bring up votes on amendments that I can force them to vote on, so they can go on the record saying, I support the Chinese Communist Party infiltrating America, and then give that information to the people, right? That's it. But, if we win back this year, 100%, then I can be fully in the trenches saying, even for my own side, I'll hold you accountable. We won't have a dime for these things, But it is, it is a little bit limited right now, but it's an important issue. I don't know if you want to add anything on just the kids' education piece. We do private school because
the government shouldn't touch my kids. They shouldn't educate my children. They shouldn't drive my children. They're not a human. They don't care. If I want something to get delivered on time, do I send it through USPS or do I go to UPS and pay for it? I go to UPS to pay for it. I don't want the government doing that kind of work for me or my family or being involved with my kids, period. So you're going to get a government job on it. Excuse me, that got a little...
Just